Welcome everyone to Deep Drinks Podcast. This is going to be a really fun one. I feel like I said that every episode, but this really is going to be a fun one. It's been a long week for me, and when we get to the drink, you'll see why I'm excited. Hani was once my guest today is Hani from Critical Factory. Hani was once a Muslim, once a Christian, and now an atheist. He runs the popular YouTube channel Critical Faculty, and which is dedicated to the use and elevation of our critical faculties. Hani's desire is that everyone can improve their understanding of reality and make better decisions when dealing with the emergent issues of our existence. I really love how he said that. If you go to Hani's channel, you may find philosophy, psychology, and science as he debunks, refutes, and discusses myths, pseudoscience, and dangerous dogmas. I'd like to very excitedly welcome my new friend, Hani. Welcome to Deep Drinks Podcast. Thanks for coming on, man.
Thank you so much, David. I'm really excited about this.
I feel like we need like a bit of a studio audience, because I always end up clapping for the guests, and it's just like me, like yeah.
Yeah, I need some sound effects in my studio too.
Yeah, I should have a sound effect. That's really cool. So we're just having a really casual conversation tonight. We were initially going to talk about more of your journey into Islam, and I'm sure we'll get into that and things like that. But we're just going to have an open conversation about religion, philosophy, and science. And I don't normally do this, but every time we've had conversations on the phone a few times, and often it's like 40 minutes in and we're like, oh, we've got to get, like, this is just going on. Like we can just talk for days. So I hope everyone else can enjoy our conversation, because I definitely will be. So what are we drinking tonight, Annie?
Well, cheers. Vodka. I've got vodka cranberry with a dash of raspberry.
Oh, nice. Well, for me, it's been a long week so far. So I'm very much looking forward to this. And I apologize, everyone, if I say some really silly stuff. I've got brain fog tonight, and I don't think this is going to help, but we'll see how we go. All right, so I'm mixing mine. So how much vodka did you put in yours?
It's like 2 servings, like, double.
Oh, yeah.
It's a nice large glass, so I usually have double servings in there.
Yeah, cool. Well, I think I might have to do triple, because my glass is huge. One thing we wanted to quickly touch on before, well, I guess actually you want to quickly touch on before we get into like a deep conversation, is you were watching the live stream the other night and you super chatted something, and you've got a beef to resolve. Is that right?
Yeah, it's not kind of, it's really putting things straight, because I felt when I was in your podcast the other day speaking with Masood Ahmed, that he, I don't want to say deliberately, but maybe he was not aware of a verse that I was trying to allude to. We were talking specifically about the verse where men are not just allowed but instructed to beat their wives as a step number 3 in sorting out a domestic dispute.
Yeah, I will actually say I've had some people reach out to me who have been in domestic abuse situations themselves, and they've thanked me and said thank you for pushing back against that, because it's this very type, like, my perspective is that this type of rhetoric is what, and this type of dogma perspective is what causes these type of domestic violence situations to continue. Not necessarily, I don't think it's a result. Like, I think the average person that beats up their partner or abuses their partner or something isn't doing it because the Bible or the Quran says so or whatever. But there are some people who obviously would find that acceptable and do it. I think, yeah. So I'm going to show the little clip of when your super chat came up, so we can just set the record straight. And because I wasn't good enough to be able to find the verse at the time, so here we go. This is the clip from a few nights ago when I had Masood on, who is a Muslim, and we were having a conversation about the existence of God. And we were talking, it got a little heated, and we were talking about Quran 4:34, which says, if you fear high-handedness from your wives, remind them of the teachings of God, and then ignore them when you go to bed, and then hit them. So Here we go.
How is God relevant any longer?
I understand that. Masood, you just asked the question. You said, I don't know how people get this. And I was just explaining. I was just saying, to me, it looks very similar to that. But Critical Faculty asked a question, and I don't know what he's referencing, but he said, David, please ask Masood about the Quranic verse where the very situation is in reverse. Ask him about the steps taken. What are the steps taken?
Well, if the woman wants to beat?
Yeah.
So look, the Quran does not prohibit a woman not to beat the man. It does not prohibit it. Nowhere you will find a statement in the Quran, ladies, you cannot beat your husbands. This statement is not in the Quran, okay? If the lady wants to beat the man, she can, but the risks are at odds. She's at higher risk to be beaten back.
I know, yeah.
And
you
this
said
is
that
not
before,
the approach
but
of a compassionate God.
is that what Critical Faculty is asking? The Quranic verse where the very situation is in reverse. Is that what he was asking?
I think I don't get it. The Quranic verse where this very situation is in reverse. Ask him about the steps taken. The steps taken will be the same. If the woman wants to beat or the man wants to beat. See, look, there is equality in law. Okay, in the Quran, if you read verses in chapter 2, where the Quran is talking about relationships between a man and a woman, it gives the ladies equality in relationships. There's a verse in the Quran. It says the rights are similar to ladies. So even if a lady wants to beat a man, she has to go through counseling first, and then separation of the beds, and then if it continues, yes, of course she can beat. But what I'm saying is, if she ends up beating him and gets beaten back, the stakes are high and there's great damage being done. Yeah.
So, but what if I understand that? But so I don't know if we need to go any further, but because I'm going to get re-traumatized because we were on that point for like 40 minutes. But yeah. So you were saying that there is a verse in the Quran or in a hadith or.
Yeah, so if I may share something, if you allow me to share something, so we can actually show our audiences as well that. So may I present the verse?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And hello everyone in the chat. I know this is a different time than we normally stream. Hi, Dr. Cheryl. It's awesome to see you here. There we go.
Right. So we are going to start from verse 34. This horrible and disgusting verse. Men are caretakers of women, as men have been provisioned by Allah over women and tasked with supporting them financially. And the righteous women are devoutly obedient and, when alone, protective of Allah has entrusted them. So this is the precursor. This is preparing you psychologically for why men should start acting this way towards women. It's been justified through men are the financial supporter of women, and therefore women should be subordinate. So this is the psychological preparation. And it says here, and if you sense ill conduct from your women, advise them first. If they persist, do not share their beds. But if they still persist, then discipline them gently, and that is apologetic. Sort of a bit of apologetics in there. It's not in the Arabic text. It's obviously somebody 21st century's morals have overridden their compass and saying, "Oh, this could be not right," But let's put discipline instead of hit, because the Arabic word is actually literally hit, and lightly isn't there, right? So this is the translator is being a little bit more human, still far from it though, but still, it's trying to improve on God's word.
Yep.
And then, and if they change their ways, do not unjust to them. Sure. So basically, if they repent, right? Now, in the same surah, this surah is called Al-Nisa, which means the women, right?
Yeah.
And this is 434. The same one. If we go 128, right? I'm just gonna display that now in front of everybody.
The Arabic language looks like it's amazing, like what it looks like.
It's very
Brilliant,
artistic. It's
yeah.
it's foreign because I'm bilingual. I was born with speaking both English and Arabic. It's interesting, and you've got to change your perception of things. You read obviously from right to left, and but I do agree. It's quite artistic. It's beautiful to look at. Now look at this in 128. This is exactly the verse I was referring to, which he claimed that he couldn't remember or it didn't exist. So I want you to read it for yourself. Let me make it a little bit bigger. Can you see that? That's exactly the same situation in reverse.
Do you want to read that out?
Yeah. So if a woman fears indifference, it's not indifference or negligence. Again, the translator is being dishonest. It's the exact same Arabic word that was used in with men, but in reverse, which is disobedience. Right. So if women fear disobedience from her husband, there is no blame or either of them if they seek fair settlement, which is best. Humans are over inclined to selfishness if you are gracious and mindful of Allah. Surely Allah is all aware of that you do. So if women are in the exact same position as men, they don't have the choice of one counseling, two so counseling through them directly, right? Like the woman would counsel or advise the man, two deserting them in beds, or number three is to scourge them or to hit them. It straight away goes to
is there anywhere, I'm just curious, but is there anywhere in the Quran where it talks about women having the right to say no to their husbands?
No. As a matter of fact,
really?
If you go to
so
Hadith,
it's just so hang on. So it's just the man that goes, nope, you're not getting none of this dick tonight, and then like going up, like that's what it explicitly says to do.
Yeah, actually, there is a hadith that says if a woman refuses her husband's sexual approaches and sleeps at night, the angels in heaven would spend the entire night cursing her, condemning her.
Wow. You'd expect angels to be able to get the curse done in like one go, not all night.
Imagine the job description. That's a job description of certain angels. Like, we are the department of cursing of non-compliant wives department.
Yeah, thank God it's most likely bullshit. But so I say most likely because I don't make affirmative statements about something that is unfalsifiable and unknowable. But so the issue is, and of course, you know exactly what there's a way to get around this. I think he even said, Masood even said in the clip that it doesn't say anywhere that they can't beat their husband. So it's like there's but the problem is like and like I gave the example, like Masood said he lived in Adelaide, I live in Brisbane. It's about it's like 2,000 kilometers or something. It's probably way more than that. I don't know what I'm thinking. It's about 5 or 6 hours on a plane. And I said, like, if I told him I was walking to his house, and then the next day I rocked up and I said, hey, I walked here. And then in the future they discover, oh, he couldn't have walked there in that amount of time because it would take 4 or 5 days for constant walking on a flat road or something. And then they go, well, actually, David knew about, future apologists of the religion of deep drinks could say, oh, well, actually, David knew that, about deep vein thrombosis and that it's good to walk on an airplane. So when it's actually teaching us, the holy text of deep drinks is actually teaching us about biology. It's teaching us that there's deep vein thrombosis and you have to exercise on a plane. Otherwise, you can make anything work, but is it the most like accurate interpretation of what's happening here? And I'd say no.
Obviously not. But one thing he also neglected to show you that this was verse 434 about the scourging and the hitting of the women. But if you go to 35 immediately, if you anticipate a split between them, appoint a mediator from his family and another from hers. If they desire reconciliation, Allah will restore harmony between them. Surely Allah is all-knowing. So you get an arbiter, and the arbiter's first, look, he gets the first pick. So his family is before her family. So some from his family and then her family. And that is exactly the one. We go back, skip to 128. And you'll see that. You'll see that straight away they go to that arbitrary like sort of judgment. Like you get a couple of groups from both of their families to settle the question between them straight away.
Well, yeah, and I mean, this is what I'm seeing over and over again so just so everyone, I'll just share my screen quickly. I have a short of Nuria Khan. Probably can't hear that, can you? But there's a short of Nuria Khan talking about how talking about her story. She married a Muslim man in Dubai. They got married. He became abusive. She tried to divorce him. They went. She can have the right to divorce if the husband agrees, right? And then they went before a court. The court believed his side of the story, not hers. And then she was ordered to go move back with him, and was almost taken there a couple of times by the police. Cool, right? Like story. And you should see these comments. As a Muslim, I'm shocked this girl is such a good actress. Why are you cutting the video up? This interview was embarrassing to watch with a blatant misrepresentation. That's an utter lie being spit out of this woman. She is such a liar, the best actress ever. My wife, who is in a niqab of her own choice, says that she's very happy with me. I must be doing something wrong. The biggest lie I've maybe heard in the UAE, blah, blah, blah. For that woman, for that man. So like saying like he escaped something horrible because, or whatever. Some guy in here called me trans, as if that was going to be insulting to me, as if like I have a problem with trans people. But also like, I'm like wow, like.
This is a beautiful collage of logical fallacies committed.
Yeah, she's wrong on so many levels. Like every day I'm just getting, this is misleading. Women in Islam do have the right to initiate divorce. Like most of the comments here are just like people calling her a clown, and I'm getting like one every like few hours. And the video is actually doing really well. I'm getting like 11,000 views. But you just see here that you lay out the facts before them. This is what the caller says. This is what this is her story, and they go, bullshit, absolute bullshit. She's a liar, she's a snake, and you just like, damn, like I'm getting sick of it. Imagine what she's dealing with on her channel when she's doing this stuff, producing this content all the time.
Well, the situation where I'll put in front of everybody here is on the part of Masood. We've actually questioned him and said, can you please mention the verse where the situation is reversed? And he said there is no such thing. And he actually claimed that women have access to the exact same steps. And I did show the verse where that's not true.
Masood is in the chat, and he said, I'm happy to host David and Hani to discuss this on my channel or the channel of your choice. I mean, yeah, send us an email. Let's discuss it.
Yeah. I've told Masood, like he knows my answer. I said I'm not interested in further conversations, because I think this, when I heard him saying that he would like Sharia law implemented in Australia, and he thinks hitting of women is a bit of a blessing from God, because that's if it's not there, then men will continue to hit women anyway, and it will lead to a divorce. This is just an incredible apology for a disgusting behavior. So if anything, I would actually consider this as hate speech, to be blatantly honest.
Yeah, and there is, and to be just and we will move on from this subject, but Masood, sure. You left a comment in the video, and you said that you're happy to discuss this with real world analytics. I don't think we need real world analytics. When we got off stream, we had a extended conversation continuing on after the stream ended, and I asked you blatantly, like, there's a society A where it has, instructions: counsel your wife, ignore her, and then beat her. And there's society B, exactly the same society, counsel your wife, so exactly the same, except it says at the end, but don't beat her. And I asked you which society has more beatings, and when you dodged and weaved and wouldn't answer the question once, how do you feature the fire? You said there would be no difference. So I've asked that same question in the comments, and I need a one-word answer from you. And if you can answer that one-word answer, I don't care which answer it is, I'll consider having a chat with you again. Otherwise, like, to me, there's no point. It's
my problem, David, is not just about the rights of women here. This is the rights of humanity. And I will have to take Christopher Hitchens' sort of ideas on that, because this is half of the world's population. At any given time, the ratio between female and male is 50-50, 49-51, stuff like that. It's always balanced like that. Religion, especially the Abrahamic ones, have been a culprit of putting 50% of the creative working population on this earth to sleep, saying you're only good at home, you're not good for anything else, and you only have to look at the stage of countries that put women, like Afghanistan, for example. No education for girls. They've closed down the last library where women or little girls can actually read a book. They're about to isolate women altogether. You look at the state of affairs there in terms of individual income, happiness, human rights, you name it. I think it's such a miserable place. And contrast that with countries that we're still a long way to have proper equity, not just equality, equity. And there are a lot of countries that are doing better than other countries. And I think when you contrast the situation, you'll see these Scandinavian countries, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, United States, and you look at them and you look at the society, how the society just jumped in all sort of aspects, because they've liberated 50% of their capacity to achieve things. And you look back and you look at the state, mostly Muslim countries, with that sort of situation, is completely backwards. And there is a very good reason for it. They're crippled, literally.
Yeah, well, this actually might move into a topic that I'm genuinely interested in, and that is how do you address the problems with an ideology, but not, I guess, paint that whole group of people with a brush. So, for example, like I'm critical of Islam, I'm critical of Christianity and Hinduism and every religion. I'm critical of atheism. I'm critical of I can be critical of anything. I don't have any. I'm not tied to any dogma. I can be critical in the areas that I think need work. And I'm happy to do that. But sometimes I'll see someone like jump into the comments and they'll say something like Islam is a disgusting, smelly religion, blah 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 blah, and you're like, whoa, that just sounds bigoted, right? Like that. You've kind of moved from. It's like what's that old saying? It's like what's the difference between artwork that shows nudity versus pornography? And it's like, I don't know it, but I know it when I see it. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, you know it when you see it, but you can't, there's like not a fine line that you can say, okay, well, this is now no longer artwork, it's now pornography. So I feel like it's the same when it comes to critiquing an idea, but how do you deal with that, Hani? Like, how do you
be honest, I would not call something bigoted because it's directed towards an idea. I think things of discrimination, racism, bigoting, it can only be directed towards other humans. But ideas don't have human rights. Ideas don't have human rights. So an idea, if it's wrong, you got to call a spade a spade. It's wrong. But I can make the distinction when it gets practiced by a human being, and I will need to find out if that human being is also a victim of that idea. Because I can say, well, you're doing this because you have been indoctrinated to do so, and I'll try to explain to them why the idea is so wrong and what kind of effect it's going to have on them. And I can completely separate. I don't have to call this person names to convince them of that. So I can be very harsh criticizing an idea while not depicting any pictures, or describing that person as anything. To me, actually, as a matter of fact, there might be victims.
I understand that, but like, let's say, like, just to spin it into a category that is very different, so it might isolate the nuance here. Where, like, if you might have, like, let's say you've got some like redneck person. Now I'm being bigoted right now, but let's say you have some. But let's say you have like a redneck, right?
That's okay.
And they're just going on and on about how all rap music is trash, and how the cultures that you would normally associate with rap music, with black culture, with things like that, that is all trash, right? And then they just go on and on and on. It's like I won't, sorry. It's like at what stage is that person causing harm to that group of people? That person that a group of people who like rap music are now feeling like their thing isn't like it's being attacked. Now that's rap music. That's not someone's that's not something that someone prays to 5 times a day and devotes their life to, and so yeah, how do you like? Because I like, for example, like I'll give you a good example. So if I'm talking to, say, a Jewish person, I probably won't use the word Yahweh, because that word is meant to be a sacred word for them. It's not. It's for them. It's offensive for someone to say it out loud. It's supposed to be unutterable, like Voldemort, right? So it's like, I'll try to be respectful there. So it's like, how do you, when you have a religion like Islam, where you literally can't criticize it, as far as I'm aware, without causing huge offense, like, how do we just have to go, oh well, we have to criticize it because we have to offend this group of people? Because I just don't know if pragmatically that actually helps the discourse at all.
Well, these people have to start understanding that ideas don't have human rights. A Southerner living in the United States, and I'm gonna give them the name Southerner. Somebody lives in the South.
Yeah.
But they actually have, we think about it, they have all the right to say rap music is trash. There's absolutely no consequence whatsoever. It's actually a matter of taste. It's just exactly the same as you, like, oh, I don't like acid music. It actually does my head in. And you can say that, and it should not offend those who like trance music or acid music, because it's not an objective area of judgment anyway. It's subjective, so people can choose to like or not like anything. But if you start saying those who listen to rap music are absolutely evil and scumbag, then that's a problem. See the difference? That's the difference I make here. So especially when you show, so rap music shouldn't really lead to any malpractice or stupid actions. But imagine if your idea entices you, like we've just read now, and instructions by God for men to hit women. I don't think you can go soft on that. I don't think you can go, oh, I cannot really say anything here because it might make some people upset. It breaks the ribs of women in the Middle East and gives them black eyes and shiners. I am going to speak about it. I am not going to condemn the man. I'm going to condemn the God, or the alleged God, who mentioned that. And I will say to men, Middle Eastern men or Muslim men, please, that is not reasonable. And I will question the verse. I will not question them. So I will draw that's the distinction I'll be drawing.
I like to spin it. I like to say that Muslims are teasing the creator of the universe. If they believe the creator of the universe said that, it's teasing the creator of the universe, because that it's like insulting. It's making them out to be dumb, irrational, moody. Like it's insulting altogether for the creator of the universe. Like, and I'm sitting here as an atheist saying, hey, stop teasing God. It's not okay. Right?
When we go deep in philosophy, you'll find out that most of the arguments against God, the existence of God, the problem of evil, the problem of divine hiddenness, are actually suggesting, and if you understand the premises, it would actually say, and therefore there is no good God. It doesn't actually cancel out the existence of a douchebag.
Yeah, douchebag God. Yeah, exactly. Masood asked in the chat, and I do want to kind of wrap up the wife beating, because that's all the last episode was about. But please ask Hani, what is the skeptic or aesthetic, I think it's atheistic, recommendation to resolve wife bashing? It's definitely not to. Well, I'll give you my perspective. It's definitely not to encourage wife bashing. I would say that's probably the best. It's definitely not to say it's okay under certain circumstances. I would say that. By the way, I mentioned this to someone I work with who used to work in domestic violence, and they lost they were like, they couldn't believe, they laughed, and they were like, how do these people think this? And to use that old saying,
that's like a kind of a step one, but I think there's a lot of education need to happen. We've spent centuries. This is a residue and reservoir of men being on top, even outside of religion. So some even nationalistic groups, and men are supposed to be stronger than women. And we can discuss the evolution of the feminine gods and how the agriculture sort of era was very sort of female dominant and it was quite peaceful. And then the Iron Ages arrived and the war machine and men took over when possession started to emerge because people didn't own anything before then. And after settlement, people were owning things, and things are very tempting to steal. And it will save you spending so much time trying to do agriculture and spend ages trying to harvest what you've seeded before. And people say, "Oh, we can just steal the village's fortune and stuff," and the male dominance have sort of emerged, and therefore the male gods and the male and everything. And it's time to reverse that, because actually we've shot ourselves in the foot. What we've done is we've crippled 50% of the world's population, thinking that this is going to be a better way of living. It wasn't. We've actually retarded ourselves. We could have been a lot more advanced if women were liberated a long time ago. So this is an educational issue. You can have a very educated person. You can even have an atheist. It's nothing to do with God whatsoever. It's cultural, and it's indoctrination, and it can then be masked by religion or even non-religion. I've known atheists who bash their wives. So this is way deeper, and it needs to go. But if you have a verse, an instruction from God to tell you that this is how you should behave, that should be omitted for a starter. That is a God. That is, if this was in the Bible or if this is in Judaism. As you know, Israel doesn't do any of the Mosaic laws. Otherwise, in the Old Testament, you get killed for saying good morning.
but the thing about other religions is they've had that chance to. I think this is the difference between Islam. They've had that chance in other religions to reform, but the problem I see with Islam is that, and Christopher Hitchens talks about this. He says it says it's from God, never to be corrected, never to be changed, never to be fixed. So they can't have their reformation. They can't have their growing with the times. So many people, so many Christians I talk to, when I say, what do you think about slavery? What do you think about taking your little children and bashing them against the stones? What do you think about? And they go, Old Testament, Old Testament, Old Testament, and then when you bring up stuff in the New Testament, what about how women can't speak in church or have authority over a man? That was for a time. What about homosexuality? Oh, yeah, I don't like that they get married. That's not cool. So they pick and choose.
Yeah. Well, you see, Islam's got a couple of problems. Obviously, it's the youngest of the brother Karamazov, the three brothers, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And they all disagree. As you know, Judaism doesn't believe in Christianity for obvious reasons, because that's the wrong Messiah. They're expecting a king. Christianity believes in, because you always need a foundation. You see, you always need an anchoring foundation. Then Christianity comes and says, "Oh well, we've not come from nowhere. Judaism is our roots, and the Messiah is not what you expect. It's the kingdom is not from this world." And you end up with Christianity, and it's supposed to be the end game. Then Islam comes to claim the same thing, that is the last message to humanity, yet claiming that its foundation stemmed from the other two religions, but then saying, well, they have been changed over time and corrupted. One big fundamental problem is in Quran is the literal word of God. The Quran was pre-written before the creation of humanity.
It's like the strength. It's like the thing that's thought to be in a strength is actually the thing that is
weakness.
The weakness, yeah, a weakness in regards to like it's going to be like a clash of like you can't resolve it. So there's going to be this divide in humanity.
The only way to resolve it is you got a move that's called the Quran only, which will try to say, for example, that word hits. They will say hit here means to separate or to get a divorce or to give them examples like hit, like in Arabic you can actually use that verb along with a preposition and another word to mean to hit, to give an example, right? But that makes no sense because the punishment is escalatory. Like it goes from one level to a higher level to a higher level. So the third level couldn't be the meekest of the three. It doesn't follow. Plus, the word hate is straightforward. Doesn't have a preposition to change its meaning after it. It's straightforward. In evolutionary terms, if something cannot evolve and does not evolve, what do you think happens to that species? I mean, we know what happens to species that cannot evolve. It dies out.
Yeah,
it can no longer survive. So if you have the New Testament, for example, which is written after the event, the four evangelists, the four gospels in Koine Greek, way after the event, inspired by God and not word for word, so they understand that these words can be understood slightly different, and it does not to be literal. And a lot of people are sort of using that sort of method at the moment. So Christianity has that little bit of flexibility where they can change meaning to suit a little bit the 21st century. Islam doesn't have that unless you go Quran only and completely change, which is a movement that I don't mind because they're trying to modernize Islam to suit the 21st century narrative. I don't mind. But I still fundamentally, disagree with God and religion, for different reasons. But right now we're talking about the practical repercussions of beliefs, because as you know, beliefs demand actions, and actions have consequences.
Yeah, there is. I just checked because I was going to put it up so everyone can and put the challenge out. But Masood has actually answered the question like I asked, which is thank you, Masood, for actually answering it. So my question to him was, in the following two societies, which would incur the most domestic abuse? Society A. In this society, men are instructed to counsel their disobedient wives, then ignore them, and then beat them as a last resort. Society B. In this society, men are instructed to counsel their disobedient wives, then ignore them, and then are not permitted to beat them as a last resort. My answer is Society A. So the society which is exactly the same, but can beat, but then are instructed to beat their wives. And Masood answered, and he says Society B.
That's strange.
And I have absolutely no way. I don't know how beating stops beating. I have no way to comprehend this.
No, I don't think he wants to stop beating. I think the worst case for him, he thinks divorce is the worst of evil. He wants to stop divorce via beating. He reckons beating will bring reason back into the woman's head, and therefore she sticks around marriage. This is a world where people think staying in an unhappy marriage is the right thing to do. They don't understand the benefits of getting divorced and actually staying mates with you've never heard of such concept of you divorcing your wife and still remain friends forever because you have common. I mean, we've seen Bruce Willis, by the way. He's I think turned 80 or 81. He's got aphasia. It's affecting the brain, and he's going to forget everything very soon. Poor situation. And there is a video now circulating around the social media where he's celebrating his birthday. He's got his current wife, and what's the name of his ex? Demi Moore. Bruce Willis. Bruce Willis.
Oh.
Yeah. And Demi Moore. The video is current. And they're all there celebrating because his kids between Demi Moore and Bruce Willis are in the video, and it shows the ex there celebrating and so happy to be within the family, and this will be unheard of in the Middle East because divorce have to be freaking ugly.
Yeah,
and they don't want that. They want to stick around for the kids, even though they might spend the rest of our lives completely miserable.
I want to and if you're not comfortable to pivot this conversation, but I'm interested to, because I pondered this myself. What do you think about like the natural state of it? Like if we could redesign society where we have societal norms and we could go like click of the finger, it's not okay to torture animals and then kill and eat them, so we get rid of factory farms and we make it so farms are nicer, and we and what does a relationship look like? What does a family unit look like? Do you think there'd be any differences if we were to rebuild it from the ground up without having these like old dogmas and stuff? Like what I'm essentially getting at is, do you think polyamory or some form of non-monogamy is the humanity's natural state of existence? Okay, I don't want to get you in trouble with your.
No. This is an area. No, that's very intellectual, and I'm interested in that, and that's going to lead us to science, because I have chased polygamy and monogamy in species because it's not a choice.
Oh wow!
It's where the oxytocin receptors are arranged in the brain. There are the prairie voles are monogamous. And the reason is their oxytocin receptors, the one that oxytocin is your hormones for happiness, and the ones that rewards bondages, and it sits in the area where it encourages monogamy. If you look at a baboon, for example, the oxytocin receptors are concentrated around the clan. So they might have different sexual partners, but they are happier in a clan. So you see them sort of fleeing themselves, each other, and that sort of thing. Humans, and this is yet to be looked at, and I think they're too afraid to look for obvious reasons. But it seems that we are happier with at least in the monogamous sense. Maybe from social point of view, it has been drummed into us. Whether we belong to the baboon and we're better off having multiple partners, or we have just one, I think it is going to depend on where these receptors are set. But regardless, it's going to be completely something out of our...
Is this something that we're going to get an answer to in the next 5 years? Like, are there people looking at this, or is it like... No one's looking at it.
It's one of those dangerous areas because, like, for example, looking into the IQ amongst ethnic groups.
Yeah.
So it's kind of dangerous.
It's hijacked, because it's been hijacked by it gets hijacked by race realists and white
supremacists. If you get a white supremacist getting their hand on that, and they're going to have a sample bias, and they're going to choose the white men to be smarter, that's going to be a problem. The problem is, what if the white men are smarter? Because IQ are affected by education, nutrition. There's a lot of things here. And we know how the black people suffered over a few hundred years because of the suppression of, and maybe as a result, they're having nutrition, education, a lot of things.
They'll talk about the warrior gene and stuff. Like, I've dabbled in not engaging in these conversations, but I'm sometimes like to watch internet blood sports, and the best kind of internet blood sports is when people are screaming about really degenerate stuff. And I've listened to a few conversations, and they'll talk about things like the warrior gene and this made up pseudoscience that isn't really real. I think from what I understand is with the studies that have been done on IQ with different races, the IQ differences aren't enough to affect, aren't enough to be if I was and I'm likely am 182 IQ, right? No, if I'm 180, if I'm 100 and someone's 105, it doesn't make huge amount of difference. What actually makes more of a difference is how they were brought up, the education they were given. Do they have a safe home environment? Things like that actually.
It's controversial, David. I mean, IQ is not enough. There's something called EQ, emotional quotient, and then you've got AQ, adversity quotient, is how you deal with challenges. There are different quotients, and there's actually it's not really scientific to get into. And let's say we spot differences. The problem is the consequences. What are you going to do? What are you going to do to the
what's the prescription from that?
Yeah, and there's no such thing as races. That's a made up word. It's not. It's a man-made word.
Yeah, sociologically it exists, right? Like we can see people that look different in general categories, but biologically, no, it doesn't exist.
Exactly. So they call ethnic groups. That's why I call them. It's a human race, and you have to. You must use the word race doesn't exist in biology. There's no such thing. So we're all Homo sapiens sapien. We're under the same genus. We're under the same familia. We're minor genetic differences, and it's because of the epigenetics of having to live in different environments, like skin pigmentations and things like that. But that's to suit the area you live in. There is a reason. There is a very good reason why very hot areas have darker pigmentation. It's got a scientific reasoning. It's nothing to do with one of Noah's sons after some vodka.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Because I think Answers in Genesis actually, they ask that question as if it's like a slam dunk. He's like, well, how do you account for all the different skin colors? And it's like, how do you account for all the different skin colors? Nobody's magical zoo boat. Like, it's just it's whack.
It's well known in science. Why do we have different pigmentation and even hair texture? Everything, the subtle differences, even the eyes, the tilting of the eyes. Why the Asians have the extra eyelids and things like that. It's all explained in science, in biology, and maybe in one of our many conversations to come, we can have conversations just based on science, and we can talk biology and evolution, we can talk cosmology, and you talk things about the Big Bang, and suddenly you realize that science is supposed to be a tool to better our lives and advance and improve the quality of life. If there are areas of knowledge where it might lead
I would kind of disagree with that. And also, by the way, Nuria, if you're still listening, I put your super chat up. I don't know if you were hearing, but I know I put your chat up. We love you, Nuria. Thank you for popping in. Really respect you. She's one of my favorite people. I always send her drunken voice messages and be like, "Oh my god, I can't believe I saw this on your blah blah blah." Because I don't experience any of this Muslim hate until I start putting up videos on Nuria. Anyway. But I see that she goes through it a lot. I don't know if I agree with that. I think science isn't there to make our lives better or anything. I think we can use it for that, but I think it's just a tool. The scientific method is just a tool to investigate the natural world. I think I try not to even go any further than that.
Look, I do agree. It's a tool of epistemology. It's not. But true. There are some things that we might find out that might not immediately useful. We might find out a use for them later on. Like, we didn't know that general relativity is going to be used in GPS later on, but it is used in GPSs because of the time dilation. Yeah.
Do you know? So I have a background in spatial science, and so I work for a surveying and town planning company. And there was a while ago where, and I think I mentioned this on the stream before, but there was a while ago where our GPS systems went out of whack. Not like the ones you'd use in your car or anything, but like the scientifically accurate ones we use in the field. And we couldn't work out, the whole surveying industry worldwide couldn't work out why. They're like, why is our system out of whack just a little bit? And it was because China built a dam that was so big that it put a wobble in the Earth's orbit. And we had to then we had to put algorithms back. We had to send algorithms to the satellites to compensate for the wiggle that it put in Earth's orbit. Amazing, right? Not enough to notice, unless you're dealing with seconds of degrees and things like that. But
milliseconds can put things off. It's usually milliseconds because they have atomic clocks for that sort of thing. And it's because you are away from gravity. Because if you're away from gravity, time passes by slower. And that's exactly what general relativity sort of predicted, and the GPSs are done that way to compensate. I think the difference can be up to 8 kilometers in difference when it's off whack.
Well, let me spin the conversation around to ask a question that's relevant to what you just said. So let me just end my stream, guys. If you haven't watched this stream before, I'm an ex-youth pastor. I'm now agnostic atheist. I have conversations about religion, philosophy, and science over a drink of the guest choice. And one of the past live streams that we did, I spoke with Michael Granado about time, and it's his PhD thesis, which is essentially the arguments around A theory versus B theory, the history of philosophy. And so I learned about what A theory and B theory was, kind of, and then I didn't realize it was relevant to the Kalam cosmological argument, because William Lane Craig, when I had James Fodder on, mentioned that I forget which one it is, but that you, for the Kalam to work, you need tense time, or tense time. But B theory, which is what we use for what you were saying before, the oh my gosh, what's
like time dilation?
Yeah. We use that. We like B theory mostly fits into that category. So that's actually for James. That's actually like before you even get to premise one, you've got to deal with the time issue, and most physics deals with B theory of time. So my question to you was, what are your thoughts on A theory versus B theory, or do you know much about it? And then secondly, how do you have any thoughts on that in relation to the Kalam and the argument for the existence of God?
Well, you see, I've actually had lots of conversation about the Kalam cosmological argument, because actually it stemmed from Al-Ghazali, so it's actually had Muslim origin, and William Lane Craig adopted it and taken it and sort of made it his own. But it's actually started as a Muslim argument for the existence of God by Al-Ghazali, and obviously it uses causality. Causality requires time. Right. So for this to work, time has to, one of the things about the arrow of time is a very interesting concept. And by the way, what's the name of the philosopher you spoke with before? You've mentioned his name?
Michael Granado or James Fodor?
Michael Granado. Okay, I know Michael.
Yeah.
I know Michael. Yeah. I've had him on my channel. He's a lovely gentleman.
Oh, he's a great guy. Yeah.
Yeah. So for the time to pass through, and you need the arrow of time, so you need time to be linear. For the term causality to go through it, it definitely requires time. So when you contrast it with the A and B theory, I tend to go with the B theory, which is not sure how popular that is.
No, I go with B theory as well, but I'm like, it sounds like we're both kind of just like, this one feels the best. Like I can't substantiate it myself, but I don't know if you can.
Because you can't really sort of, it's still debated. It just nobody actually, even physicists are not sure about this, the nature of time and whether it's actually a thing, because time is not fundamental by the looks of things, but linked with space and space-time as one unit, it is fundamental. But time, as we think, as the arrow of the time, of passing of the time, why we can only remember the past, why can't we remember the future? We can only remember the past. That's an indication of something called the arrow of time, which happened at the symmetry breaking at the beginning of the universe. Yeah. So the universe was symmetrical, and a breaking of symmetry happened at an early stage of the universe, causing a residual imbalance of matter, and that created the arrow of time. The time goes as an arrow, and obviously the existence of subsequent conscious beings like ourselves, who are finite in nature, will experience that timeline.
Yeah.
But whether that timeline exists within nature itself, whether does the universe experience of past, future, and present, or fundamental matters, or in quantum mechanics is there such a thing? Because how do you explain then retrocausality in quantum mechanics, where the future affects the past?
Yeah, like this is where, so a few things. Michael says that all of this is, and what he says it's prickly. He says this conversation is prickly. It's not a solved science. And I like the word that he said, prickly, there. He also said that, and this is a quote, a large portion of 21st century physicists lends itself best to B theory, not A theory. and you need a theory for the kalam. And this is just and so this was a random stoner thought. Not that I smoke weed, but this is a random stoner thought that I had one time, and I wrote it down. And this is, I want to get your opinion on this. Time is a construct that we as a society have invented to account for the decay rate of atoms, the changing of seasons, and the rotation of Earth around the sun. The concept of time is an arbitrary tool that only exists, in quotation marks, in our subjective experience.
Agreed.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that. But even the Kalam cosmological argument, I would actually argue it doesn't even follow the A theory. Because I'm just thinking now. So A theory, posits that even the past and the present, the past and the future don't exist. Only the present moment. Once the present past, it no longer exists, and it's only the present time is dissected into like sets. But the actual past, once it's past, is no longer in existence. Which means it actually it will go with the God who created the universe and no longer exists. So pantheism will be a lot more suitable to the A theory of time, the one that suggests that God was absorbed by the universe and became the universe. That actually makes sense. So the Kalam cosmological argument, actually, as a matter of fact, goes with the classical colloquial understanding of time, the time the one that has present and past and the future. Because one of the issues that he posits that infinite regress, going back in time, it creates absurdity. So you cannot go back in time. There must be an ultimate beginning, because if you go back in time to infinity, you cannot come to the present moment. That's what William Lane Craig says.
Yeah, and this is where I disagree most heavily with William Lane Craig, is because I don't think we can make statements like that about infinity, because by definition, infinity is like essentially unknowable, like from that level. Does that make sense? Like I know that I can keep counting, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in integers, right? For infinity, but I can't comprehend what that infinity actually is outside of the kind of approach to get there. Like so like another I've had conversations with debates with Muslims on TikTok, and they will say that we need God because otherwise you have an infinite regress. And they say we need something that started it all, otherwise it just keeps going back and back and back and back. But I say, I don't even know if I don't have any way to evaluate that question, because I don't know, like when we get to singularity, like the start of the Big Bang, cosmology and all that, right? All that good stuff. I don't know if it's even a sensical question to ask what happened before the Big Bang. I don't know if it's sensical to posit any form of question to time at the moment. Like I don't even know if I can say before singularity. I don't even know that works. So for me, that I look at this and go like, this is a big mystery, and we should look for answers. We shouldn't just say God did it and then dust our hands off and go, therefore that solves the problem, because it doesn't solve the problem.
Yeah, you see, there is a misconception about going. I was like, oh, you can't say the word before the Big Bang because time did not exist before the Big Bang, because at the inflation of singularity, space-time were created. So when t equals 0, we call it t equals 0, time equals 0. And the right answer is we don't know. There could have been time that is different than to ours, because we don't know where does the singularity come from. It might have been another collapsed universe. It might be a bubble of ensemble of universes that creates multiple singularities, and some are fruitful and some are not. The M theory or the superstrength theory suggests that parallel universes, a multiverse, could be there, and we live in a universe that which will fix the fine-tuning issue that has our laws of physics, but other universes might have different laws of physics in there. So the issue of time is not resolved. But I can tell you for sure that I had mathematicians and I'll pose the question to Lawrence Krauss and Brian Greene and the likes. And there is absolutely no problem whatsoever in mathematics to go back to eternity.
Did you say that you've posed that question? Have you had Lawrence Krauss on your show, or have you spoke to him?
Yes, I've had him 6 times on Critical Faculty.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
great time to actually shout out your channel. Critical Faculty, guys, go subscribe. Links in the description. Links in the
So if you go to the videos, please, you just go instead of going to the bio. So go to the videos. Home.
Home. Yeah. Upcoming live stream.
Here you go. You can see Lawrence Krauss in there.
Oh man, I can't believe Professor Dave Explains is like going off at everyone on Twitter at the moment. It's pretty funny. Professor Lawrence Krauss. Oh man, that's so cool. I'm gonna have to watch these interviews. These are great.
Yeah. So forgive the bald haircut. This is around COVID, and my wife used to cut my hair using a ball.
Really?
No, I'm joking. No, it's just.
Wow, that's really cool. I've never seen it. So no, I have seen some of your videos. I'm on my Deep Drinks channel, so I can reply to people. So that's why it's not showing that I've watched some. But you also have Matt Dillahunty coming on soon, which is going to be a cool conversation.
Yeah, really looking forward to that. Yeah.
And that'll be good.
Lawrence Krauss is coming again in April.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So in that question, so we have no problem at all going back to infinity mathematically. There isn't absolute absurdity or anything whatsoever. As a matter of fact, the existence could be infinite, and that's consistent. Okay. There's absolutely no problem, and that will solve the prime mover issue. And the first thing. So the first thing is the universe itself, or existence with capital E. You don't need a first mover or a first starter. It's existence itself. It suggests that nothing was never in there ever, because if nothing is there at some point, it is something.
How do you define nothing?
Exactly. So,
but it doesn't feel intuitive, and this is where I always get suspicious. If something feels intuitive to me, and that's the reason I believe it, I'm very suspicious of that belief system, because my favorite statement has got me through a lot of anxious nights is feelings aren't facts. You know, the world might feel like it's falling apart for me, but feelings aren't facts. It's probably not falling apart. I don't need to worry about things. That's my favorite state. So if something feels intuitive to me, then I'm suspicious of it, and that's probably a bias that I have. But for me, it feels intuitive that something must have had to have created us, right? And so I go, why? You know, like, well, you know, who created that creator? You know, and then they go, no one created that creator. And then you go, okay, well, if no one created that creator, why can't we just cut out the middleman and say, no, you know, the universe created us? Or like,
you'll have to commit the special creating fallacy. You know, like you make a rule and then you make an exception for one thing, and then so you've actually sort of broke the rule. But one thing about I'll tell you something really interesting. Muslims, Christians, and not Jews, because there was no hell and heaven in Judaism. You probably have had some of your expert theologians would have told you so.
We will be talking about that with oh my gosh, sorry guys, I have to give Deep Drinks a shout out now. Also, you had a conversation with Masood, debate.
Right, a debate.
But just to shout out Deep Drinks before we move on. Coming up, we have the amazing Dr. Matthew Monga, and we're going to be talking about why the Old Testament doesn't have a soul. Do you like my art? Monga's Bible missing.
That's pretty good.
So we're going to be talking about that because the Old Testament doesn't have a soul, and and that was one of the things that he kind of discovered in his deconstruction process and his scholarship. We'll be talking about that. So yes, we'll be talking very much about that. But keep going. What were you saying?
No soul, no hell, no afterlife. Satan wasn't fully developed the way it was developed in Christianity. He was actually the right hand of God. You know, the book of Job would explain it all. You know, he was working for God quite nicely. They were working together. That's quite. But here's a concept for you to think about the eternity and time. So Muslims and Christians believe that there is eternity in the future, right? So when you go to heaven, You're there eternity, right?
Yeah.
Did you know that eternity, like the infinite sets, is exactly the same in the past as the future? So if you have a problem about the past, it will be exactly as the future. So if the future is infinite, you will also have no. You can't come to today. The same problem will still exist.
Yeah, and I just like that's amazing. But I just also realized that then William Lane Craig will have a problem with heaven if heaven's infinite and he thinks heaven can't exist.
Yeah, if he uses the same, there is a call I can't remember now, the Hellbrand Hotel, I think.
Oh, Hilbert Hotel.
Hilbert Hotel. Yeah. Where
he loves to talk about that.
Where you have but that shows you that infinity is not as consistent. It actually sets within infinities. So you have a superior set in infinity. They're called Aleph, which is it's actually used. It's after the alphabetical Aleph, which is A in Arabic. So you see algebra and a lot of mathematicians were Arabs, so they've created a lot of things. And it shows you that a lot of contradictions can be created within the concept of infinity, because infinity isn't a number. It's not a number. It's a concept. And if you deal with it as a number, you will always fail. It's a concept of infinite series of numbers that never end.
Yeah. The Mojo posed a really interesting question. God is eternal, right? What did God do before creation eternally past? Did he always create? Do you know what I mean? Or is God God without a universe? Is God a plot device?
Well, it's a question I've always thought about, because if God at some point, and it's evident that he must have been, because if other things coexisted with him, they will be co-eternal. So God must have been the Alpha and the Omega.
Yeah.
You know, he had to be. So at some point, he was all by himself, and no other consciousness was aware of him. Does that mean before creation, God then could not be attributed to creation? He would not be a creator at that point? And would his existence, because he does not fall on other consciousness to recognize his existence, does that mean that he actually was around? Or if he was around, would he be relevant? Does it mean that creation stemmed from a need? Because if God never created, he would have never been acknowledged. Imagine God spending eternity all by himself and never been acknowledged by a consciousness.
But if he was perfect, he wouldn't need to be acknowledged by it. You know,
You would think so. That's what I thought. Perfection demand. You can be your company. Actually, I spend a lot of time by myself because I've got enough jokes in my head where my wife just passes by and says, "What are you laughing at, you dick?" I've got stuff in my head that I can replay, and So you think wise God can do that, but no, he needs to be glorified. And the Quran says blatantly, it says, God created the jinns. That's not the alcoholic drink,
it's the fun demons. The desert demons, right?
The quirky ones, and humans only to worship. It's a Quranic verse. So God created them for a reason. Those who do things for a reason, what do you think? What kind of entities they are? They have needs, right? If you create something for a reason, then you must have a need. Otherwise, why would you create? And if you have a need, that means you're not complete. You've got a hole to plug. You've got something to fulfill. Therefore, you're not as perfect as you claim to be.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I've had these like similar conversations with theists, and we get to the stage where they have to just admit God isn't perfect, or at least he's made himself not perfect in order to be like relevant or something. Like, especially like the problem with like omnipotence, like all knowing.
That's going away now. Nobody's saying they're trying to go with the maximally things.
Yeah. I hate that word. Hey, that's what William Lane Craig is. That doesn't he? He says like maximally powerful, or like, and you're like, oh god, it's just like it's the flying to Adelaide thing all over again. It's like, what can we find that can make this problem go away so we can feel nice? Like, I mean, that's probably a bad.
Well, it started by Leibniz.
That's a dishonest framing, but
yeah, that's the ontological argument by Anselm and Leibniz. The maximally conceived greatest being, and that's the ontological argument. It's just like silly. It's like, what? Because I can imagine something greater than me, therefore is God. Like, what the?
So, what do you think? I'll throw this at you. What do you think is the most convincing argument for God's existence?
Fine tuning. Fine tuning is the one.
Okay.
It plays by the rules.
Okay.
But it's got an answer, and you a physicist and a good philosopher together. I think Sean Carroll. If you watch his conversation, his debate with William Lane Craig, he's finished him off in that sort of debate. He's completely debunked the Kalam cosmological argument, and he brought up the fine tuning because Sean Carroll I don't know if you know him, he's a great physicist, but he's Steelman. He's the one brought the fine tuning as the best argument for the existence of God. And Christopher Hitchens said the same thing, by the way.
Okay, give us the Steelman version of the fine tuning argument, just for the audience sake. And for
there's about 27 now. They have been sort of minimized to a smaller number of certain universal constants. If they move by a hair here or there, the universe would not be the same as we have here.
Yeah, but why does that matter? Like, so
it matters because it means that it was planned for us to exist. It means it's been planned. It cannot be coincidental, according to theists.
Yeah. Okay. So is it saying like essentially it can't all be a coincidence? Like, is this like, but what's to say? You know how like you were saying before how the universe is possible. The multiverses and things like that. Is it possible there's an infinite amount of universes that just don't have the right things going on to do much of anything? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. So for example, the electron has a certain mass, and if that mass is not exactly that amount, matter would have not gathered. You will end up with a universe just that's full of gas. Planets will not emerge. So therefore, if no planets, if no stars, no planets, no living organism, no consciousness, and that's possible. But the fine tuning is a random game. So if you have infinite set of random numbers, our universe is not just a possibility; it must happen. One of them must click, because you've got infinite number of probabilities. Then our universe must have happened, or must happen.
It also, like, again, it seems a bit insulting to God as well. I love going back to this argument because I really think it does. It causes a problem. Is if you do accept that, like, you've also got to accept that God created a universe that is perfect for the creation of black holes, which are the most destructive things that we can think of. Or if it's have you ever seen those, like, back in the day there used to be a lot of Facebook sunset photos with the psalm in the bottom right hand corner of the photo. It was like, God covers us with his feathers or whatever. Why? Imagine doing that with a photo of like a spider. They're both equally as created, but like one doesn't feel right. One fills you with awe, one terrifies a lot of people. So it's like, you have to take the good with the bad. If you're going to make the argument that, like, look at the trees, look at the sunset, look at the fine tuning, you have to go, well, there's also a lot of things that aren't fine tuned for life. Definitely not. The fact
universe is trying to kill us. It's actually the radiation and everything. It's actually it's not hospitable at all.
The very thing that gives us life is also killing us, like with cancer.
Oxygen,
and stuff. Yeah. Well, oxygen. The sun. It's wild. Unless you're members of my friends and family who believe that sun cancer isn't real unless you put sunscreen on, and that's how they keep the profits going. Yeah.
I love
sunscreen gives you cancer.
I love the water in the hole analogy. There's a bit of water inside, a hole on the ground, And it goes, oh my God, look at this hole. It's exactly my size. Look at this. It's as if it's made for me. It's perfect for my shape. Look at it. It's just perfect. It's made for me. Not knowing that the water takes the shape of whatever hole it's in or whatever vessel it's in. And that's exactly how we are. We evolved in this universe. We evolved on this earth. So we're suited to endure the issues with this universe. But we are reverse engineering it because we want to understand. We would like to think there is a reason. It's otherwise nihilism and despair is coming our way. It doesn't have to be that way, but people need fathers. And when our fathers go away from us, we still need that father in the sky to look after us. And it's time to take responsibility. It's time to know that prayers is not going to stop earthquakes in Syria and Turkey, but better buildings and buildings suited for natural disasters that pre-existed to humanity. These things were here before us. They are not punishment, and they're not even a problem of evil, because the problem of evil, it proposes there is a God. But if you take God out of the picture, these things are explained away quite nicely and naturally without having to add any additional probabilities. Occam razor.
Well, there's the other one of the arguments that I agree with you, but one of the arguments that it's probably the funnest argument for the existence of God, because it's just so easily demonstrable for me, at least, unless I'm misunderstanding it, which is the watchmaker analogy.
Yeah. When you're
you're walking along, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's been a while since I've looked at any of this stuff or even watched something like The Atheist Experience, but like, so you're walking along, you find a watch, and you're like, wow, this watch is definitely different from the environment around it, therefore it must have had a designer. You can see that it's designed, is essentially the argument. But the problem with that, and I heard Matt Dillahunty say this, is like, you're in a field of watches, like what you look at the human ear and you go, oh, it's so beautifully designed, and you compare it to like a rock, but you're like, but that rock is also designed. Like, what are you talking about? Like, everything is designed. You believe everything is actually designed. So how can you think that maybe you can steelman the position against that? Because like that, to me, it's just it falls over right there.
Yeah. Well, this one is very old. It started with Tom Aquinas, and was popularized by the 18th century English philosopher William Paley, the watchmaker. And it's flawed. It's flawed because if you get to understand, Darwin has fixed the problem. Everybody believed that the biological diversity, it was an issue. Immanuel Kant, the German philosopher, said there will never come a time that the Isaac Newton, there will never be an Isaac Newton for a blade of grass. That nobody's going to be ever able to explain the biological diversity. And few decades later, Charles Darwin came about and explained it all away. That's not how things evolve. People thought things were designed. They are not designed. Animals were not designed. They evolved and they descended from older ancestral species. They don't need to reproduce. That you get the silly Boeing 747 inside a garage, being hit by like pieces of metal and parts are hit by a tornado, and you end up with 747. That's incredibly naive to say such a thing, because biological evolution is based on living organism that needs to eat, that needs to survive. There is a struggle for resources. There is reproduction. There's passing of genes that leads to all these changes. Machines don't do that. You don't go around the beach. If I watch two watches, having a go, then I'll go, okay, well, there's something going on. They're trying to mate and trying to reproduce, but they don't reproduce. They're not under no biological pressure to survive. It was such a flawed analogy, but I can understand it was created when humanity still thought that everything just came about just the way it is. A giraffe was just like that giraffe. It didn't come from a common ancestor. An elephant was just exactly created like that. That is it's called the teleological argument, which comes from the Latin word teleo, as in something made with a purpose, like a mug with a handle. It's made for a purpose. So he reckons that the universe was made with a purpose, and therefore it must have a creator. It's flawed. It's wrong. It's been debunked many times over.
So what's your like worst argument for the existence of God? If mine's the watchmaker, what's your like the one that you think that just should never get attention?
That ontological argument, I think it's quite silly. It's like if you can imagine the most amazing being, therefore God exists. It's like the jump is just like weird.
It's yeah. So what is so that's you it's like, so if you imagine the most correct me if I'm wrong, because like again it's been a while, if you can imagine a God, and that God is like a perfect amazing being, well, an actual perfect amazing being would be better than your imagination, therefore it exists. Like, is that essentially the
that's the ontological argument. That's the most conceivably the best conceivably being, and because we can conceive of that concept, therefore it exists. Which is very strange. We can conceive of so many things that don't exist.
So I know. So you were once a Muslim, once a Christian, and now you don't believe. Do you? Well, I don't know if we want to get like right into your story, because we're almost at 90 minutes, and I'm happy to go over if you're wanting to continue chatting.
Look, I'll take you as my cue. You tell me when. I'm happy to continue. If you
Okay. But so. Maybe give us a quick over. Give us Hani's story in like a couple of minutes. Give us like, how did you become a Christian? How did you become a Muslim? Give us a quick overview, because then I'll lead into some questions. Yeah.
Very, very quickly. I was born to an Egyptian father of a Muslim background. He was no longer Muslim. He was an atheist, and an Irish mother who was New Age Catholic. She didn't really go to church, but she believes in spirits and star signs and stuff like that, and power of crystals. So I was. We had a big library. My father was a big reader, and I was encouraged to read all the way from the Bible to Nietzsche. I could choose whatever I want to be. So I was not practicing any religion until the age of about 14, 15. And then I'm a teenager, and you know what? When you're a teenager, who's the first person you want to take on? It's your father usually. And I was like, "Oh, you don't believe in God? I will believe in God and prove you wrong then." So, before that, I went into Christianity for a bit. I never really got baptized or anything. I read a lot about it, and I thought it was bogus. Like after like a year, it's like didn't hit the nerve at all. It's like just like nah, that's.
Well, you shouldn't be reading. These are all faith things. You gotta don't be reading. How dare you?
But Islam was interesting because it was quite rebellious to me. It's like, well, fuck the system type of thing. So I thought I'll take it on and I'll just prove my dad wrong. Just 2 years later, he stuck his tongue out and said, "I told you so," because I'm straight away saying, "Shit, you were right all along." So that between the age of 16, maybe 16 to 18, and at that point, I've become kind of agnostic. I was reading a bit now, here and then. Then I got busy with university, and this is the time where you forget about God for a bit, and you start drinking and living life. And then I'll come back to it later after studying philosophy and my degree. I matured a little bit more, and I got interested in the debate and the conversation. And this is where I start calling myself an atheist, probably around the age of 21, 22. And I was able to actually articulate arguments against the existence of God and things like that. I'm interested ever since. I think religions are interesting. We talked about it off air. They ought to be studied properly. They reveal the psychology of ancient humans, and I think they should be respected in the way that they are human literature. They betray a lot of our fears and ignorances, and they need to be studied closely, and not thrown away or burnt. That's like the actions of ignoramuses, and I don't like that. Yeah.
100%. Like, I love learning about how they used to do human sacrifice in some of the I think it was Mayan temples, or some of the temples that are the ziggurat, I think it's called. Anyway, I'm not very good with my history and geography, but I love learning about that, and I love learning about Quran 434, where it says beating your wife. But as soon as someone says like, "Oh, we should still do that," whoa, 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 whoa! Don't sacrifice virgins. Don't beat your wife. Like, whoa, 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 whoa! Like, we went to look at this as like, wow, what did they believe back then? That's amazing. Like, incredible. Like Abraham, what Abraham took his son to go like slit his throat because he heard voices in his head. Whoa, what a crazy story. Thank God it's likely not historical.
Imagine this happens now. I mean, this person will be straight to the next police station and will be trialed straight away.
Yeah.
The one who's trying to kill his, I've heard a voice, a judge.
And that's why our society is sick. We need those prophets to lead us in the right direction. Forward. That's sarcasm. I often have to point out my sarcasm. So that's super interesting. So you never really had like a really, like, it doesn't sound like you had like a really strong emotional connection to your religious. Yeah, wow. So did you go through any like any shame around like purity culture or like drinking or anything like that? Like for me,
I'm very fortunate. I don't have a sad story with religions. That's why I'm not so angry. That's why I can be a little bit sort of great. And I'm not understood in the Muslim community. When I go in Clubhouse, I've got a big club there by the name of Critical Faculty, and I have Arabic and English conversations, and they don't understand me because those who live, the ex-Muslims in the Arab world, are so angry, and they don't understand why I'm so cool, calm, and collected. They're just like, where do you? Because I've never lived their traumas. And they have the right to be angry, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I went through. I call it my my edgelord atheist days, where I just wanted to talk religion with everyone and tell them about why I would somehow find a way to weasel it into every conversation. But I calmed down. But what I went through is nowhere near what someone who some of the people you would talk to would go through. Like it was very hard for me, but it wasn't. I mean. Yeah, I mean, like beyond like psychological and emotional abuse and stuff, it was like I wasn't like I didn't like lose my family or anything, thank God, or thank Neil deGrasse Tyson. Yeah. That's what I say. So I think what we should do is we've gone through some of the arguments for God's existence, and I was trying to find Capturing Christianity posted this meme a while ago, and he listed all these arguments for God and said, these are all the arguments for God, and I wanted to go through them with you, but I couldn't find it. But what I did want to ask you is, what are your favorite arguments against the existence of God? Like, how did you go from being a Muslim and being a Christian to, I mean, you obviously evaluated those belief systems, but from moving from theism in general to atheism, was there any arguments that you found were compelling in order for you not to actually believe in God full stop? So maybe like the problem of evil, or
well, problem of evil is strong, but the strongest one, and I think Matt Dillahunty would agree with me. He actually said the same thing. The divine hiddenness argument developed by Schellenberg, the Canadian philosopher, in 1993, is the strongest I've come across.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know if you've been through. Have you come across it before? Like the proper.
I haven't heard the syllogism, but I've heard that. I've heard Matt Dillahunty talk about it. My issue with it is it presupposes that God gives a shit, and I mean the obviously the point is, well, if he doesn't give a shit, there's no need. You don't need to worry about it then. Like, cool, but that's not really what I'm trying to get out of this argument. I'm trying to determine the validity of a God claim. I don't really care if God.
There will never be an argument developed against a creator, not a God, because God means worship worthy. So at that point, it's not going to be. So a creator who is way more powerful than you, who's concealed himself, and who's watching you suffer and wanting you to suffer. There will be no way. It's exactly like you won't be able to find your simulators. So if you believe in the simulation hypothesis by Nick Bostrom, it's one of 3 chances that we actually are simulated right now.
Yeah.
And you can put in the program and the simulation that you will never, Mario will never be able to find out that he's actually
Shigeru Miyamoto. He'd never be Mario can never meet Shigeru Miyamoto.
Yeah, and maybe that's not something to do with the speed of light. If you think, why is the speed of light 300,000 kilometers per second? What if we move faster? Nothing moves faster than that inside the universe. The one thing that moves faster than that is the expansion of the universe itself.
If I was to use that terminology, that Mario hypothetical though, what if Shigeru Miyamoto built himself an avatar and sent that avatar into the game, right? Wink Jesus, wink wink Jesus. Like, what if that was, the case? A maximally great avatar.
There are a few movies going. Have you seen the movie with what's his name, Mr. Guy or Mr. Nice Guy, where he was a character in a game and he actually found out that he was the character in the game?
Oh no, I don't know that one. My past is in game development, so I've got all the memes.
Yeah, it's called Guy. I think if you Google it, the name of the movie called Guy. It's got the guy from Deadpool.
If I type in Guy movies, I'm hoping I'm not going to get a bunch of porn. Guy movies.
No.
Hotmails.com. Yeah. Free Guy. Yeah.
Free Guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a brilliant movie. And obviously The Matrix. I mean, The Matrix is, So he actually, it's a game. He's a character in a game. And he does the same thing all over and over and over again. And one time he actually started to develop consciousness and realized that something isn't right. But it's exactly like The Matrix, but this one is comedy. So it's fun to watch. It's actually a brilliant movie. And The Matrix is the same thing, Most people will go through life and without knowing. Unless there's a glitch. Remember in the Matrix, the black cat that passed twice in a row, the deja vu. That's a glitch.
Yeah.
I mean, so things like that. What maybe deja vus are something. I mean, I'm obviously trying to freak your audience out here. I don't think we live in a simulation, even though it's way more plausible because it does not suggest anything supernatural. A simulation can be run by a nation or a civilization a lot more older than us. Or it could have been us in the future, rerunning their past. We are their past, trying to understand their past. They're so divorced from their past, they're rerunning the tape to find out where they've gone wrong. Maybe
they're the ones. Yeah, they're the ones that built the pyramids, because obviously they couldn't be built.
The ancient aliens, huh?
Yeah. So I want to have you on the channel again. I don't normally say that just blatantly like that because I hope you're willing to come on the channel again. But I really enjoyed this conversation. I feel like we should kind of wrap things up around now and save the conversation for, instead of like going through points quickly, we can like take our time and have these conversations more often, especially because you're in a time zone where we can drink more vodka and cranberry, and it's not 5 a.m. for me, which is hard. I will say. I do have a last few questions though for you.
Sure. And by the way, David, I'd like to have you on my channel as well. So I think the audiences can expect sort of series between the two of us, sort of
awesome,
home and away.
Well, it's a good time to shout out your channel once again, guys. Go check out Critical Faculty. You have Matt Dillahunty coming on, and Dave McDonald. I'll be coming on soon. Who's got 2 thumbs and going on Critical Faculty? This guy. So the other thing I want to mention is we have an action-packed. My God, I'm so proud of myself, but it also explains probably why I've got a little bit of brain fog, because I'm reading so many books and prepping so many interviews. But Saturday morning, we have Anastasia Paraskevova coming on again to talk about the war in Ukraine. She's a Ukrainian a volunteer living over there in Kharkiv, raising money for the as a volunteer to help the people of Ukraine as they're being invaded by Russia. Right after that, very next day, Cult of the Dead with a professor, Dr. Kyle Smith. He's a professor. It's an amazing book about the martyrs of Christianity. The very next day, we have Stacey coming on, who is the co-host of Skeptic Haven, about losing confession. So her story, her deconstruction story. And then 2 days after that, we have, actually not the next day, the day after, Matthew Mongo coming on to talk about the Old Testament and the soul. So guys, if you want to, like, I'm trying hard, guys. I'm really trying hard. And if you want to support this channel, you can click the little join button here. You become a member, and then your comments will be highlighted, and I'll make sure I read them out. And also, you go up in levels, so you get to, like, if I click this, it'll come up. You get like different little icons for how long you've been a member for. So, and it's only like $3 a month. So if you want to help support the channel that way, you can. And also, we have the Patreon that you can check out. You can see the rough cut of a video that I've releasing a video that I've never made a video this long before, that I put in so much work. It's Christianity's Lost Diversity rough cut. So if you want to go join the Patreon, you can check that out right now. But with all that said, thank you so much, Hani, for coming on. I have a last few questions for you that I ask a lot of my guests, and we'll see how we go, okay? So first question, what, if anything, would change your mind?
About the existence of God?
Yeah.
Or
the existence of God.
It has to be a direct objective proof, not a subjective, not a personal experience, because I could be hallucinating. I want an objective truth that can be verified through science and other people, like the rearrangement of the constellation of stars in the sky in Aramaic or Arabic or Gaelic to say, I'm your God, I'm here, something like that.
If without like a supernatural event like that, like and I'm just kind of riffing now, but is there anything that we could discover, I guess, in science without like a supernatural event that would kind of increase the chances that you think a God exists?
Not really, because if it's explained by science, and when you read books like the Quran and the Bible, when the books are so big, you can always reverse engineer to find things. Like, they're trying to find now the Big Bang and black holes in the Quran. But, just any similar words. And what we can do with words as humans is we conceive them in a certain way. And if we want to believe, we can twist them to mean that. Again, anything that is subjective, I am going to suspect. I don't want biases to get into. I want an empirical, objective evidence that can be verified by other people, can be verified by science, because I don't want to be misled or deceived by my own senses and which they can fail at times. We know that humans are not perfect that way.
What about if you're allowed to sin? Would you then believe in God? If it was okay to sin? Because obviously you don't believe in God because you want to sin.
No, not at all. Not at all. The reason why I don't call everything a sin. I'm 6 out of the marriage. I've practiced with passion, and I'm not guilty about it, because something as natural as that, especially when it's consensual between two loving people, even as a one-night stand for two adults to do that, still not a sin. We're not committing a crime. We're not hurting anyone, and therefore it's not a sin. So I've redefined the word sin to mean harming other people, and I don't do that because I don't want to be harmed. There's a social contract written by the different human groups. You don't hurt my son. I don't hurt yours. I want to live in a peaceful community. I want to be able to walk at night not knowing that I'm going to be jumped. So I won't do it to other people. Simple as that.
I was making a joke. I love that you answered that sarcasm. I don't know if that's emblematic of the vodka or the fact that you just got a really good answer to a question. Normally it's a lot of people don't get the sarcasm because they're not Australian, but I thought as an Australian you know where I was coming from.
Yeah, no, I got the sarcasm, but the thing is, sarcasm most of the time flies over people's heads.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
they'll think you're quite serious, So
there was actually, there was a while where a gay friend of mine was watching the stream and he said, "You need to stop saying the gays." Because I was saying it ironically, like, "Oh yeah, the gays are coming," or like the gays caused the COVID-19 outbreak or whatever. I was saying it unironically, but a lot of people might not have got that. So I'm like, oh, good point.
But you know what? I mean, think about it. Like gays, even you being called an atheist, sometimes we don't like to be reduced to just the one label. I think your happen to be homosexual friend is way more than that. You're way more than an atheist. It's just in the right context, in a religious conversation, you say that. But I think you, as a David, if you want to be introduced, you probably want to be introduced in so many different other ways.
Yeah. It is funny how, like, sometimes I'll go like, "Oh, Colin, my mate, he's been on the Deep Things podcast before. Colin, oh, he's a gay," and he's like, "Stop!" It's just the word it comes off hangover. But anyway,
the good question is he the only one in the village?
So Doorknob Head said, "Read the Quran." This is just an amazing comment. "Read the Quran. I found the black hole. Turns out it's the whole thing. The whole thing is a black hole."
True.
Okay, last question. What is the most plausibly true religion that you don't believe in?
I am going to have in few weeks Hemant Mehta. I don't know if you heard of him.
Oh yeah. The friendly atheist.
The friendly atheist.
Yeah.
He moved from Jainism to atheism.
No way. You have to give him You have to give
him
tell him about me because I'd love to have him on. That's wow. Really? Jainism,
the most peaceful religion on earth. They put a piece of cloth on their mouths so they won't swallow a small fly or an insect by mistake. They walk with like brushes and brooms while they're walking, so they can actually sweep away anything that they might tread on. They're so religious, and they're no gods. It's a non-deistic religion.
It's fun. When prepping the slavery panel, I was watching a lot of like slavery apologetics, which literally took years of my life. Like it's given me some sort of brain hemorrhage or something. But I remember the worst argument I ever heard from Ben Shapiro. Sam Harris says to him, "Hey, there are religions that don't have slavery, like Jainism," and his response, "Yeah, well, how many converts does Jainism have?" What? We're talking about the epistemological approach of a religion, not like a.
Ben Shapiro is weird.
Yeah,
like some of his responses is very strange, especially with his voice squeaks the answer out.
him and Jordan Peterson have the voices of.
Bit of a Kermit, bit of the frog going.
Oh yeah. I've read 50 books on. I've read 50 books on climate change, and I'm not convinced that it's man-made. Oh, cool, Jordan Peterson. What information do you have that the climate scientists don't have? You partisan hack. I'm sorry, the vodka's getting to me. Thank you so much, Hanny. Oh wait, was your answer? Before we go, was your answer Jainism?
Jainism. Yeah, Jainism. I have soft spot for the Oriental, the non-Abrahamic religions. I think they're a lot more civilized. Buddhism is also quite nice.
Yeah, interesting. I need to learn more about Jainism, but it seems like a nice religion. It seems like a fun one. And Buddhism. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I can't wait to come on your channel, guys. Make sure you go to subscribe so you can see me over there, and we will end on the Purity panel trailer and then the outro. So thanks for coming out, guys. Love you all. Bye.